you start using bigger numbers, that's when you have to pull a
You
calculator
don't need a
out.
calculator for everything.
So say 5 times 20,000. Everyone I know would need a calculator.
100,000.
You have a calculator.
How did I do it in 2 seconds then?
You're not
it takes at least 5 seconds to type with a calculator.
You're not impressing my stream. Everyone knows you're using a calc. Calc is calculator for short, chat. So
Jokes aside, Banshee isn't really the strongest frame in the game right now. As a matter of fact, I'd say she's one of the weakest when we're talking about just base kit. But, you know, likewise, Banshee is likely the frame most bailed out by the Helminth system, because when you're a frame with basically 2 abilities, adding a 3rd ability ends up, you know, having a world of impact. Banshee Sonar is the single highest direct damage amp in the game, bar none basically, along with Silence offering incredible utility and comfort. This frame can hit damage / integer cap, whatever you want to call it, with a fishing spear or a mining laser, right? Like, a rework would help this frame a lot, but I also want this video to be relevant for a while, so I'm happy either way. Banshee's base kit struggles a lot, but luckily she has the like core foundation to still operate at a relatively high level, whether that's like a supportive role for teammates or a completely selfish role. I think Banshee can still do a ton, even though her kit isn't very complete, because we have things like the Helminth system, certain synergies that bail her out. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about it regardless, and it seems like you guys are excited to see the guide. So thank you guys for the love, thank you guys for the hype, subs, comments, don't forget to sub if you want more, like if you want more, but the algorithm, you know how it goes. Love you lots, let's get into the guide. Luckily, Banshee is super easy to get. You just head to the Tenno lab in your clan dojo. If you're a newer player, you're not part of a dojo yet, or if you're just not part of a dojo at all, you really should. There is so much, whether it's from mastery fodder to some of the best frames in the game, all that is there. You should absolutely be joining a clan and making that dojo key as soon as possible. Starting with some quick fashion frame. I don't have anything too incredible here. Unfortunately, most of these are just kind of similar versions of each other, but I think they're really good. And then we'll get to the passive here. As you can see, nothing too crazy there. I think Banshee, especially with this skin, works really well. So before we get to demonstrations, let's start with the passive. Ability or weapon noises are hushed, so enemies cannot hear them. This, unfortunately, just on paper seems fine, but really has no practical application, along with Banshee's silence ability already taking away a lot of the perception and deafening enemies. Unfortunately, this passive has basically no mileage, outside of maybe helping with some like affinity multipliers, stealth damage multipliers, but that is about it, and most of that is done by silence. This passive massively needs an update. A lot of it is the game's current state's fault, but I mean that applies to a jillion other Warframes, so it's not a point of discussion really. Banshee's first ability is Sonic Boom. Banshee releases a sonic wave outward, knocking enemies backwards and down, dealing minimal damage. It's really nothing. This sends enemies into the ragdoll state, which is useful for a couple things, but the main thing is pyrotechnics, which allows pyrotechnics to do its weird like limb targeting, and along with knocking enemies down, being quite useful for gloom, as gloom will slow down the animation of them getting knocked down and then getting back up, which gets quite a lot of mileage. You stack it with cold procs, any other slows, it's really quite a good synergy. But unfortunately, this ability on its own especially is just completely not good at all. Avoid using any negative verbiage there, but yeah, it's just not good. Useless? No, I think that's dramatic. Most YouTubers might call it that. I don't really believe in that. But on its own, it's not very strong. It just needs to be kind of part of another synergy to work. So yeah, Sonic Boom, kind of buns, not one of Banshee's real abilities. But now we're talking about real abilities, baby. Banshee's second ability is Sonar. Banshee sends out a pulse that moves quickly outwards, marking enemy locations on the minimap and marking enemy body segments with a mark of your energy color. These body parts are segmented into 6 parts, which are the 2 legs, the 2 arms, the torso, and the head. This also, like when a body part is marked, it means that that entire segment that I mentioned is marked, meaning if an enemy's like left pinky toe is marked, that entire leg is marked to take damage, even if the energy color isn't there. Hopefully that makes sense. Shooting these segments causes a massive damage multiplier to occur, and it doesn't consume the mark or anything, which is super useful. Also, these marks can overlap with multiple casts of Sonar, whether that's through the augment we'll talk about in a second, or just Banshee pressing 2 over and over. And those 2 bits of damage will multiply on top of each other, which is why Banshee hits damage cap just with so little effort. It's kind of disgusting. Sonar, when layered on top of itself, is the highest single target damage amp in the game, basically bar none. I mean, I could think of a few other ones. It's a debuff, which is inconvenient for sure, but with the augment we'll talk about in a second, occasional recasting, getting 2 marks on the head is fairly consistent and spells death for any target. It's insanely strong. I do wish these marks properly got registered as weak points. You know, that would make it so that we don't have to get 2 on the head, but as of now, unfortunately, we have to. That's something that with a rework I would like to see changed. But yeah, if you can just get 2 sonar marks onto the head of enemies, it'll do great. Another thing is, it's not always visually clear which part of the body the sonar marks on, so just always try to get sonar marks in the head, go from there. That's how I personally play Banshee and have found great success, but of course, play however you want. Another huge thing worth noting is that you don't have to hit bullets onto the sonar points. Things like pyrotechnics, abilities like Flechette Orb, and Null Star, which is one of the strongest Banshee builds currently, they're able to hit the sonar marks as well for the damage multiplier, which ends up being insanely valuable. Broken, I'd say. Banshee's third ability is Silence. Banshee releases a pulse that stuns and suppresses enemies' hearing and perception for a duration. Like so. This is how you know they're stunned. They'll be unstunned after. Silence has an aura around Banshee that persists, allowing for enemies who enter or re-enter the radius to be stunned. So you'll see like this. I will exit and then re-enter. They'll be re-stunned like that. The stun is not persistent. You have to... I'll explain in a second. This aura also deactivates enemy abilities and prohibits them from being cast. This is very close. The stun only procs for a short duration when enemies are initially exposed to the Silence aura and cannot be re-triggered within Silence. Meaning, in order to reapply the stun, Banshee must move away and then back near enemies so that they can re-enter the radius. This makes modding for too much range and duration kind of unfavorable, but we'll learn later why that's okay. And so on the note of duration, you'll see, Silence is not recastable, meaning that it has to go down and back up. But now it's off cooldown now, so I can recast it, stun again. So range, for the reasons that, of course, we'd have to exit, run away, and then try to re-trigger it for the CC. But duration also, that way we can cast it again and get that stun a second time. Enemy abilities, quote-unquote, are pretty loosely defined, but the main ones to be happy about are Acolytes and Xmas units. Violence, the Acolyte that most players find themselves remotely concerned with, has this ability, Silence, but if Banshee's Silence connects first, Banshee wins the dick measuring contest, and Violence is basically a non-factor in your games. Silence also stops all Xmas abilities, even through Overguard. Xmas are a huge factor for some players in certain builds, and how they will occasionally die, right? So neutralizing those is great. Also, even if you're not struggling with dying, neutralizing defensive Xmas like Guardian or Frost is really, really convenient. Guardian Xmas provide a ton of value to the enemies, so it's good to be able to disable that ability with literally 0 effort. A lot of Banshee's survivability Helminth options are ignored by Xmas, but Silence makes Xmas stick out a ton and leaves them without their most valuable tools being their ability. So if it's easy to prioritize and eliminate them. Combine this with like secondary fortifier, some magnetic damage, and you're basically all set. Here's a strenuous list of enemies who have their abilities nullified. It can actually be very useful against a lot of weird pieces of content, like maggots here, who cannot attach to Tenno, they just do nothing and die. We have a lot in common, it seems. Bros just like me, for real. Banshee's fourth ability is unfortunately Soundquake. Banshee channels and releases a massive AoE damage field. Notice I've lowered enemies to non-steel path modified level 60s for the purpose of this test, which you'll never see me do again, by the way. And they are not dying with me sitting here channeling. Is this build optimized? No, not really, but you'll notice this damage just isn't very good, unfortunately. And when an ability does nothing but damage and it can't cough up relevant damage, or that damage doesn't scale properly, the ability is basically cooked on the get-go. You could use it as a form of CC, I guess, if you really wanted to, and it can absolutely kill. Like, if you are a player who is below that level 60 mark pre-steel path, it can actually nuke no line of sight, which is not bad. But for once you pass that point, it is a completely worthless ability, basically impossible to make work. You're welcome to try. If you can make it nuke at steel path, then I'm a bum and loser. You should leave a comment, whatever. I suck. But for me, I don't think this ability is worth the effort in trying to make good. The augment makes it serviceable. Not really. No, not really. For damage, it is never usable post level 60. But if you wanted to use it for the CC, I think it's got some merit there. But then again, you're losing the precision intensify slot, which you want for it. This ability is unfortunately not working, and if Banshee were to be reworked, I think this is the main ability that definitely needs to be taken a look at very, 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 very thoroughly. Next, we're talking about augments, and luckily they're actually pretty decent here. Sonic Fracture is the augment for Sonic Boom, obviously, and it's quite good. It actually causes Sonic Boom to strip 70% of armor at base, which is a very high base value. The only problem is it's attached to Sonic Boom. It's going to send those armor stripped enemies across to different zip codes, leading to very inconvenient gameplay very often. When you're dealing with certain priority targets who have armor and overguard, so they won't be knocked back but will still be full stripped, like Eximus or Thrax, it's honestly not a bad augment. I think Sonic Fracture is something you can situationally equip and have it feel very good, but outside of those situations, it's going to feel like total ass. So kind of buyer beware on Sonic Fracture, but it's definitely not a bad augment. Resonance is the augment for Sonar, and it's very good. Killing an enemy by shooting their weak spot will trigger another Sonar for 100% of their remaining duration. I mean, it explains it. It lets you get more of Banshee's defining best ability. It is basically must equip on every single Banshee build. That I can't think of a reason you wouldn't run it. Band-Aid? No, I don't think so, but just so stinking good, you can't really go without it. Resonance is incredibly good. Equip it on every single build. That's basically it. It lets you just get so many more Sonar overlaps, which is what you're really playing Banshee for. Damage equals good. Convenience equals good. Those are like the two of the most valuable stats in Warframe. There you go. Savage Silence is obviously the augment for Silence, and finisher damage is increased by 300%, scaling with strength, while Silence is active. 300% being the base value. That's a very high base value to work with, and if you are doing, again, when I don't really think of melee when I think of Banshee, but if you wanted to do melee stuff with Banshee, you like this. Savage Silence gives you a lot of damage. It's quite good on the Ash build as well with Blade Storm and whatnot, but if you, for any reason, want to do anything with finishers, Savage Silence is actually an incredibly solid option. Because it's base kit, I guess you could run Wrathful Advance if you wanted to. I think melee Banshee is really underexplored and could totally work, but the problem is, of course, you know, you lose a lot of survivability. When this frame gets reworked, I swear, she's going to be so broken, but for now, Savage Silence is, in my view, a for fun augment, and it's tuned to a certain for fun playstyle that I don't think is particularly optimal, but some people don't care about that, and God bless them, me neither. Resonating Quake is Banshee's augment for Sound Quake, and it foregoes channeling to create a shockwave that deals 20x damage at the epicenter but gradually weakens. So it's generally going to be more damage, no matter what, basically, for most enemies in the radius. It also, again, it removes the channeling, which is huge, and it results in the knockdown. It's really quite a good augment, actually. It's just the abilities, again, where the ability really just does damage, and the damage sucks. So there's no reason to do it. If you love Soundquake for whatever reason, Resonating Quake is going to be the way to do it, whether you're trying to nuke at low levels for fun, hey, God bless you, or if you're trying to just use it for CC, Resonating Quake is going to be the way to make it work, but I just do not use this ability. I'm sorry, it's so bad, but the augment, it does its job, I guess, whatever, man. Now, Banshee's Helminth slot is basically always going to be her 4 Soundquake, but her 1 Sonic Boom is also a solid option if you want to keep your 4 for whatever reason. This gives you access to all of her most useful abilities, and you can get Sonic Boom with its niche uses. And it gives you the Precision Intensify slot, which is really nice for a couple of the subsumes we're talking about here. The goal is survivability, absolutely, but obviously Helminth you want, free country, baby. Because Banshee just needs the survivability, super bad. She has enough damage in Sonar. She's blessed with that, but now we have to kind of reel it back, get some survivability in there, make a more complete Warframe, because her base kit just doesn't cut it. One thing to note beforehand, if you have Arcane Circumvent, it makes all of these options like 10x better. I know it's the best arcane in the game. Oh my god, yeah, equipping it is good, but like it helps Banshee a ton, and melee Kareen if you opt for it. So we'll go in a list of kind of my favorites, for starting with Resonator from Octavia. This is the most sound option, right? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. You know, sound-based ability from a sound-based frame on a sound-based frame now. Like, to me, it makes perfect sense. I know some people like Helminth options that kind of resonate with a frame's aesthetic. My bad, sorry. You can dislike. This is, in my view, the best option. It just distracts enemies, basically breaks their AI. Incredibly useful. Obviously, overguarded enemies are immune to it, but we talked about how easy Banshee deals with Eximus. Resonator is, in my view, the best option. My personal favorite is Evade from Cyto 9. This gives you access to the penultimate defense in the game, invisibility, gives you access to crepuscular, and the healing from evade lets you utilize combat discipline, arcane avenger with archon intensify, which is just a better growing power, with that flat crit chance if you decide you want it. Evade is really interesting in that, evade is equally as efficient at 100 duration as it is at 200 duration. You just have to keep it up. It's a very skill-based Helminth. It relies a lot, not on the mod menu, but instead your ability to play as a player, your tolerance for discomfort, and also the setting you're playing in, which is probably the biggest part there. One of the other best is also Null Star from Nova. The Null Star parts can hit the sonar marks, or the Null Stars can hit the sonar marks. Incredibly broken, 75% DR. Just stupid amounts of damage. This thing can nuke with sonar. It is ridiculous. It is just insane. And obviously the 75% DR we're going to take every time. Speaking of that DR, another option is actually Eclipse. Eclipse is kind of the side grade to Null Star. You get a little less damage automatically because the Null Star is the Neutron Star. The augment just kind of goes out on its own. With Eclipse though, if you have a team that can keep you safe already, say the Dante, Revenant, whatever, with Mesmer Shield, you can actually turn on the damage version of Eclipse, and that's actually what Banshee prefers because she deals very upfront damage. She doesn't deal with statuses or abilities. It's damage multiplier. So the damage version of Eclipse is actually really good if you decide you don't need your DR. In my opinion, having those two options is actually super helpful. You can even just in the middle of the mission switch back and forth if your energy econ is good enough, of course, which it totally should be. Another option is Omamori, of course, from Kome. This is really valuable. This is just, in my opinion, this is just brain dead shield gating stuff, and I know a commenter got really upset that I mentioned that. Sorry, buddy, but it is a very strong way to survive. Omamori, Vigilante Vigor, Aegis, shield gating with fast deflection or whatever. It's just super broken, and this will also let you use that combat discipline Avenger Archon Intensify setup that I mentioned with Evade. And then Pillage from Hildren. This one's obvious. Full strip rooms, or don't full strip if you want to get more shields. Super solid. Also, just shield tanking is good. This, in my opinion, Pillage is the best support Banshee setup. You're just applying Pillage debuff, Sonar debuff, Silence debuff, insanely broken, really strong. And then Pyrotechnics is something I used in a viewer build. I'll link their comment here. But yeah, that's just the Sonic Boom, Sonic Fracture setup using the Ragdoll from Sonic Boom, super solid. And the last one being Gloom. Yeah, slow the whole map down, slow down their silence animation, slow down the cold animation, slow down their knockdown animation. It's a cheesy way to survive, but it absolutely works, no doubt about it. So yeah, sorry, the whole conversation about Helminth here was a lot longer, but Banshee does desperately need it, so that's why it's gone so long. Archon Shards, we have a total of 45% ability strength here, which is just sonar, baby. And then our 2 quality of life, government mandated casting speed, and power core velocity, Tau Forged. These mod how you want. I think purple's for primary damage with electricity is super good. Anything with power strength is great. If you need to top off energy, the blues are good. That you really can't go wrong with Archon Shards. They're basically quality of life and just more damage, win more. They're not super crucial to most builds. Speaking of builds, fortunately, building Banshee is super duper simple. Depending on what Helminth you take, obviously it's going to vary a bit, but because of what I mentioned earlier with Silence, you really don't want to go too high in duration, you really don't want to go too high in range. A build like Resonator might have a little bit more range, but you're never going to take overextended on Banshee. At least on my builds, I never do. You don't want to lose strength. There's no point in that. With Evade, you'll see here I can kind of forego range. I just have a little bit for quality of life. I really don't need it here. I did keep this build, and I'm not really gonna do this again. I kept this build at Zero Forma for the guide to make it easier for you guys, but I will be there's some changes here. I'd probably switch out Transient Fortitude or put Transient Fortitude in place of the streamline here, but there's again with Evade, duration it's all a skill thing and a setting thing. Resonator, I could probably function with a 145 170% or what is it, 165, yeah, with stretch and auger reach. Energy Nexus is really good on Banshee. If you want to run flow, you absolutely can. Let's use primary overcharge if you want, or it's just more comfortable energy economy spam. Depends. Again, a lot of what you build here is the same foundation, but then there's 3 flex slots that kind of are purely determined by which Helminth option you go for. Here's the Pillage build. We go for a 93% strip. That way we can almost full strip enemies, but then if we need to strip again to get shields back, we can do that. That's why full strip isn't always optimal. You'll see that Aegis and Circumvent find their way on a lot of these builds, especially Circumvent. This is a Null Star build. Of course, one of those flex slots is going to have to be dedicated to Neutron Star, but it is so worth it. The damage you get is ridiculous. So just to run it down real quick, Health, you'll never build. Shields, you can sometimes build, not necessary. Armor, one of the lowest in the game, so definitely not. Energy, if you feel like you need it, but blue shards should do the trick unless you're using some sort of energy synergy, like overcharge. Her sprint speed is great base, actually. Duration, no more than like a primed continuity, a little extra maybe. Reducing range on Banshee feels kind of bad. She does have good base stats for Sonar and Silence in terms of duration and range, but I don't think going down in duration or range is really worth it. Just try to get that strength as high as you can. If you're using Worthy Camaraderie like me, it's a really strong synergy, just the way I play. But of course, Combat Discipline, Growing Power, if you're trying to do any synergy that you can think of, go for it. For me, Worthy Camaraderie just makes the most sense. So yeah, basically all building Banshee requires is, get so much strength as much as you can, get like medium range, medium duration. You can nuke efficiency. Resonance makes you so efficient. Obviously, if you're running like a spammy build with more casting, you might want to change that around a little bit and add like a streamline, or add like, I don't know, energy econs. There's all sorts of things you can do for energy econ, death cube, energy generator, all that stuff. But yeah, luckily building Banshee is like super duper easy. And then just want to talk about a couple of synergies here that are in place, and then my focus school. Vidaria Prime is like the only thing I use on Banshee. First of all, like the fit is fire, obviously. But the lightning strikes are able to hit sonar points, which leads to multi-100 million lightning bolts, super cool. And for evade, it works because the lightning bolts hit the head, which results in evade continuing to go, which is like its biggest problem, is keeping it up. I usually use the Compressa as a primer, but Lex Prime is here. You can put secondary fortifier on that, and you've got an Eximus Eliminator 1000, 9000, really, it's insane. Rakta Dark Dagger here just provides overshields and also has the Mind Haze passive, which reduces enemies' perception of you from like further distance, which can be like, okay, it's fine. It's more for the overshields, utility, and drip. And then Vazir in here, I'm really just running because I was farming that focus for the ultimate, but it's a very good supportive ultimate. Additionally, if you want like energy econ, you do Zeneric. If you want damage, you do Materai. Like, really, Banshee doesn't have a super duper preferred school, but most people in endgame do take Materai because it's just that good. But yeah, there's lots of weapons that can hit, like bouncing bullets from Toxicist. I think the bees from Zymos, gas and electric procs can hit sonar because they can target body parts. So just keep all that in mind when you're building. I use Blast on my Vidaria here because I use an Acuity setup, which is just more efficient. The range is better, the AoE is better on it, but they're just, please experiment with Banshee. Real Banshee mains, share those in the comments. And then for my companion here, I de-equipped it. It really, you can use the viral priming, you can use the Death Cube. Like for me, I think I like Death Cube with a cold priming Tazakor. The freeze rate adds a whole other layer of survivability, which I don't really need, but I will always opt for it if I can take it. Luckily, playing Banshee is super simple. You're going to start every mission with Silence ready to go, because as enemies enter that radius, it gives you, it gives them time to be stunned, which is super valuable. As you move around and whatnot, cast Sonar a few times, the base range is strong enough that you really shouldn't have to mash it. Also, before you recast Sonar a bunch of times, kill some enemies with Resonance. There's no point in dumping your energy. If you have Sonic Boom, or if you have Sonic Boom and Sonic Fracture, cast that as often as you need. And then really, you're just going to be recasting Sonar if you're moving around. And at that point, using whatever Helminth option you've elected for to keep yourself alive. That could be as much interaction as Evade or as little interaction as Omomori. It's really up to you. Luckily, Banshee's mechanical execution is incredibly simple. So, what are my final thoughts on Banshee? She is fine. She definitely needs a rework. There's no doubt about it. But Banshee, in my opinion, with Equinox, is the poster child. I'm doing a separate video on this, so I won't spoil too hard. Just because your favorite frame can get good outcomes does not make them good in terms of design. Like, it's especially when you're a good player, you kind of like forget that, the base kits exist, right? But Sonar is an incredibly fun and interactive way to get like more damage. Sonic Boom with, I think, like literally like 2 changes maybe could be quite good. Maybe a tap hold cast, one that doesn't knock enemies, like, Timbuktu or whatever. And then a whole new ability in Soundquake would be super cool. I think Banshee would actually be one of the easier ones to rework. It's really just her ultimate. Sonic Boom's like half an ability, but just needs a little bit extra work, and then her passive could use an adjustment. But I think Banshee might be the next rework target, because I genuinely think, she would be one of the easiest, and you'd get a lot of excitement out of it. Maybe an heirloom skin. Who's to say, right? Who's to say? But yeah, this frame's like fun to play. I think she's fine. If you follow this guide, I struggle to see how you could struggle. She is pretty fun to play. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but silence, which is usually a very underrated ability in the Helminth system, because it's not outright survivability and it's not outright damage, but the convenience it provides. Oh my god, no Jade Light, no Frost, no Guardian, no Violence. Like that is like quality of life transcended. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I actually deleted all of my audio and video a day before this video was supposed to upload, so this is all being done in a series of a couple hours. Hopefully it didn't show that much in the content, but you know, don't forget to like, sub. Thank you guys for the support. Love you guys to death, and I will see you in the next one. Much love. Talk soon. Bye bye.